Hey, yo, what's up? So, I wanted to talk about how not getting validation from women when you're young basically destroys your mind. And it's destroying my, my mind, right? So, it's basically kind of related to the never having a girlfriend. Something's wrong with you, right? Because everyone knows about your brain stops developing around 25. Or I guess it's just done developing around 25 or so, right? So your brain basically has to develop without any kind of female validation, that confirmation that you are worthy of women, right? And of course, people who receive validation from women during their formative years will take it for granted, right? Without a doubt, they will take it for granted and then come and tell you, who has never received validation from women, past the age of 25, probably, right? They'll tell you that, just be confident, bro. Stuff like that. Oh, validation from women doesn't matter. But yet, okay, so why does it not matter, right? Yet, there's so many instances of just relationships or romance, that kind of stuff, being inserted into so many unrelated things, right? And it's some kind of relationship subplot is always inserted into most forms of media, right? Well, why is that? It's like, why are there so many celebrations, like Valentine's Day or even like Christmas, right? It's not a direct celebration of relationships, but it's implied that you're supposed to spend it with family. What is family? People you have relationships with, right? Like a man and a woman have to have a relationship to start a family, right? At some point, a relationship has to be formed for a family to start happening, right? So it's like you just can't deny that relationships are such an important, just everyday, they're not necessary for survival, but they're just under the category of necessary for survival. And obviously, like I said before, people who have relationships, who do interact with people, who do receive validation from the opposite sex, will gladly and quickly come and gaslight you and basically minimize your issues, saying, oh bro, you don't need them, they're not that big of a deal. But then again, why if they're not that big of a deal, then why are terms like incel and virgin used as insults? Explain that to me, huh? And why? People say, oh, bro, they're not actually insults, but, they are, right? And they'll say, oh, there's nothing wrong with being a virgin. Then why do they make media like the 40-year-old virgin? Like, why do they poke fun at that stuff, right? Why are the characters you're supposed to laugh at in media always nerdy loser virgin guys, right? Who don't get girls? Why is this the case, right? Because your worth, whether you like it or not, is to some extent derived by whether you receive attention and validation from women, right? You can't just like completely dissolve yourself from certain standards that society sets out, right? It's just the way life works. You can't just say, oh bro, I'm gonna stop caring and then no one else will care, right? That's a cope. Because people, just because you don't care doesn't mean everyone else will care. And let's be honest, some people are like, well, I don't care, I don't need anyone, right? Well, it's like you're coping hard because just the fact that you're probably watching this on a computer or an iPhone using Wi-Fi, which uses you need electricity, right? You need electricity to charge your phone, to use your laptop, your computer, whatever, right? To use the Wi-Fi. You are using stuff that, society provides to you. So you're coping if you say you're like a lone wolf and you don't need anyone, right? at the end of the day, you still are using society products society produces, right? You're using Wi-Fi, you're using the internet, your phone, whatever, right? So unless you made your phone, unless you're like, I don't know, I don't even know what the term is, right? What is it? Do it yourself maxing, right? Unless you're DIY maxing, then you're coping hard when you say, "Oh, I don't need society. I'm a lone wolf. I don't need I don't care what anyone else says about me. I'll be a virgin or an incel, and I don't care," right? Well, at the end of the day, you will care because that will affect how other people will treat you, right? And like going back to the main point, not receiving that validation from women impacts, how you see yourself and how others will see you, because they'll be able to tell, right? It's like, oh, this guy's not getting attention from women. What's wrong with him, right? That's what girls will think. And then, other guys will be like, oh, they may think that, but if they may not care about that too much, but they don't want your undesirableness to rub off on them, right? They don't want to become an untouchable like you are. They would, and the fact that women avoid you, they'll avoid being with you. So, women, because there's no women around you, right? Because if guys will want to hang out with another guy that gets a lot of girls just because the girls are always around him. They're going to be hoping, it's like, oh man, maybe that means one of the girls will like me, right? They'll cope like that, right? And then, not getting women, no women around you, other women have an in-group bias and will deem something being wrong with you, right? And they'll say they don't feel safe around you, right? Which is a complete cope, right? But at the same time, you can't really disprove it, right? Because you can't disprove a feeling, right? Is it an unjustified feeling, right? Them not feeling safe or creeped out by you, is it unjustified? It is, right? Because they just feel that way because you're unattractive. But at the same time, the feeling that you cause is, factual, because just like I can say whatever makes me feel uncomfortable, and it's going to be true because it's just a feeling. It doesn't have to have a good justification, right? But like I said, is it a good justification? Do the women have a good justification for feeling unsafe or creeped out by you? They don't. That's the actual reality, right? Just someone being facially challenged doesn't give you a right to say that. Oh, that doesn't make the you do have the right, but it's not a valid reason to feel unsafe around someone, right? Just because they're facially challenged. So yeah, and the weird thing is, right, the women will also sometimes say, that they're people and they want to be treated just like other people, right? Like another guy, right? And then, you're only valuing women for for being women, for what for a relationship, right? But at the same time, some people will also judge you negatively for not getting women, right? Including other women, right? But isn't that basically declaring that your only value basically is derived from, your relationship and dating market value? I mean, it basically is. I know people will try to cope and, jump through hoops. They'll do Olympic level, hoop jumping just to somehow, mental gymnastics, Olympic level mental gymnastics, going through all of these crazy mental hurdles and hoops to somehow justify that. It's not getting women does make you a bad person, but that doesn't mean that when I'm judging you because you don't get women, that the only value of that women bring is that they're whatever their looks or their body or whatever, right? But it's come on, it's a cope, right? Because at the end of the day, it's true, everyone's value basically just comes down to their looks, aka their genetics, right? And I mean, it's just an uncomfortable truth. It's another inconvenient truth, not this global warming BS that they put out. But this is an actual inconvenient, uncomfortable truth, right? You know, that your value is basically dictated by your looks, which are dictated by your genetics, right? Your bones, your bone structure, all that stuff, over for bone cells. And you know, you don't really have much agency over it, right? You got what you got, right? Like I said before, you got what you got, and you better hope that your genetics are lean more towards the attractive side, so you have a larger spectrum of women that are attracted to your genetics, right? Because that's all predetermined too, right? The amount of women that are going to be attracted to you, it's basically predetermined by how good your genetics are, how far to the very attractive or how far to the very unattractive side they lean on. You know, like I said, just like a beam of light, and you want to lean closer towards the very attractive side, so you have a larger beam of light and being able to, you know, capture the hearts of more women. And but yeah, you know, it's brutal. It's all basically predetermined. Like, you don't have agency, right? Because, you know, people will cope and say, oh yeah, you gotta do some special thing, whatever, just gotta have game, bro, all this stuff. But the actual factual truth is no one does anything to attract someone, right? Just think about it. Did that girl that you have a crush on that you've never talked to, did she really do anything special to make you have a crush on her? No, she just existed, you know. And at the same time, you know, and unless you want to argue with me that women are not people, you know, that women are somehow magical beings and not people, you know, then by that logic, right, women are people, then women function similarly in that guy they have a crush on, do you really think he did anything special? No. For the most part, he just existed. He just lived his life. You know, he was just born with genetics that were able to, capture her heart, for lack of a better term, right? His genetic beam was broad enough to be able to capture her, right? That's basically it. That guy, you know, if we're being honest here, that guy that she has a crush on, which is not you probably, because that's why you're watching this video, he didn't do anything special. He just lived his life. He didn't go up to her and, you know, perform an extravagant dance, think of some poem, right? All that stuff that you see on media, right? Oh, you got to write a girl a poem or something like that, right? It doesn't actually, none of that actually happens in real life. And, you know, and when it does, you know, they always, the girl's gonna have a story about, oh, this guy did something so cringy, right? Like, he thought he could do that. It was like, or, you know, if she's nice, you'd be like, oh, he's so sweet, but I just see him as a friend, right? So what's the difference between a friend and a partner, right? Because you're not going to be friends with someone who has a bad personality, right? The big difference is the looks, the actual genuine attraction, the sexual attraction. So he's basically just missing the looks, right? Because if you have a good enough personality to be friends with, then, you know, looks is basically, you know, the next step, right? That what will make her, you know, basically horny and want to sleep with you, right? Because that's basically the big difference between a platonic and romantic relationship. Or not even necessarily just romantic. It doesn't have to be like an actual relationship, but it can be like a, you know, friends with benefits, or just a one-night stand, right? I just use relationship as a way, you know, to say a connection between two people, an interaction between two people. But yeah, you know, that's a big difference. Just physical, sexual, genuine attraction is the difference between between, just a platonic and something more. And that's the missing link, bro. You just didn't have the looks, and no one will admit it, right? You just didn't have the looks. You didn't have genetics. Have you tried just being better looking, bro? That's the actual advice that guys need to hear. Not get a better personality. Have you just tried? Well, I guess if you can get women to act. Well, no. I guess for really anyone, right? Because if you can't even get women to interact with you, right? It's because you don't even pass the looks test on right off the bat. You're not good enough, right? But if you pass the looks test, then she'll talk to you, but she won't want to progress anything further, and she wants to stay a friend. It probably means that your looks are acceptable, but they're not up to par, right? So maybe you're not like sub, or significantly, because I know you can't say that word, the submarine human, right? As long as you're not that low, right? As long as you're not that low of a submarine human, then you're able to still manage to maybe score a platonic relationship, but you don't meet the minimum looks threshold to basically have a romantic relationship. So yeah, and I didn't even really talk about how it messes you up, right? No validation from women messes you up, but that's kind of self-explanatory to some extent, though, right? Not receiving validation and having that key missing part of your life just completely gone during your developmental years, like how is it not going to negatively affect you, right? Just imagine, have no attention, no validation from half the population, while you see other guys just live their life and receive it. Like, of course you'll think something's wrong with you, like, because unfortunately something probably is. That's the ugly truth, right? You don't want to admit it, but you're just not good enough, right? Because if you were good enough, some girl would already like you, right? It just makes sense. So it's like the only guys who are wondering if you have to wonder, am I good enough? Does she like me? All this stuff. Then the answer is probably no, because a woman isn't going to be so mysterious and to that level where you have to think, oh, does she? If you have to doubt yourself and think so much, you're just coping. You're just trying to find signs where there are none. You're basically just coping. So yeah, that's kind of it. So later.